Welcome to my channel. Have you ever felt too shy to speak English because you were afraid of making mistakes? I've been there. I used to be so ashamed of my English that I avoided talking to anyone. But something changed, and today, I want to share the real story of how I turned my fear into confidence. It wasn't easy and it wasn't fast, but it was worth it. So, grab a drink, sit back, and let's go on this inspiring journey together. By the end, you'll see that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave. Let's begin. There was a time when I couldn't even say a full sentence in English without feeling a storm inside me. Nervousness, shame, fear of judgment. I remember sitting in class, hoping the teacher wouldn't call on me. My hands would sweat, my heart would race, and I'd silently pray to be invisible. But sometimes I wasn't lucky. The teacher would ask, "Can you read this paragraph?" And that was when my worst nightmare came true. I'd stumble over the words, mispronounce them, and feel the quiet giggles around the room. It wasn't just about speaking English. It was about feeling like I didn't belong, like I wasn't good enough. At home, I kept quiet about it. No one knew how much it hurt. I would avoid speaking English whenever I could. If someone asked me something in English, I'd smile awkwardly or respond in one word. I convinced myself that I was just not meant for this language, that some people were naturally good at it, and I wasn't one of them. But deep down, I had a dream. I wanted to speak confidently. I wanted to travel, make international friends, understand movies without subtitles, and maybe even teach someone else one day. I just didn't know how to get from where I was to where I wanted to be. One evening, I saw a motivational video online. The speaker said, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." That line hit me hard. I thought, what if I just try? Not to impress anyone, not to be perfect, but just to improve myself. That night, I picked up an old English storybook and started reading out loud. It was difficult. I made mistakes, but I didn't stop. The next day, I watched a short English video and repeated every line like a parrot. Again, I stumbled, but I didn't stop. Slowly, I made it a daily habit. I would wake up early, spend 15 minutes practicing English alone. At first, I couldn't see progress, but weeks later, I realized I could understand more words. I could read faster. And one day, when someone asked me something in English, I didn't freeze. I actually answered. It wasn't perfect, but it was real progress. That small win gave me confidence to keep going. I started recording myself speaking and watched it back to find areas to improve. I would describe my day in English to myself, even if it sounded silly. I listened to podcasts while walking, repeated lines from movies, and joined online communities where I could practice without fear. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes I wanted to give up. Sometimes I felt like I was still far behind everyone else. But I remembered why I started. I remembered that quiet voice in me that said, "Don't stop." I kept reminding myself that fluency doesn't happen overnight. It happens one brave word at a time. Every day that I practiced, I wasn't just learning a language. I was building confidence, discipline, and self-belief. I wasn't just getting better at English. I was becoming stronger as a person. As I continued my journey, something began to change, not just in my words, but in my mind. I no longer avoided conversations. I started to welcome them, even if my sentences weren't perfect. I stopped worrying about grammar mistakes and focused more on expressing my thoughts. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was being understood, not because I was fluent, but because I was finally trying. One day, I went to a local meetup for English learners. I remember standing outside the building, afraid to enter. A voice in my head whispered, "You'll embarrass yourself." But another voice, stronger now, said, "You've worked too hard to walk away." So I stepped inside, and I'm so glad I did. Everyone there was just like me, trying, stumbling, but showing up anyway. We laughed at our mistakes, encouraged each other, and celebrated progress, no matter how small. I realized I wasn't alone in this journey. We were all learning together. That day gave me something I never had before, a safe space to grow, a friendly environment where no one laughed at you for mispronouncing a word. Instead, they helped you say it better. I began attending regularly. With every session, I felt more comfortable. I began to speak up, ask questions, and even help others who were just starting. That experience changed everything. It showed me that growth comes not from hiding, but from showing up, even when you're scared. My confidence began to show in other areas too. At work, I volunteered to take part in projects that required communication. In public places, I started ordering food or asking for directions in English without hesitation. I even created a small YouTube channel just to share what I was learning, my tips, my mistakes, my journey. At first, only a few people watched. But then, something amazing happened. A comment appeared under one of my videos. Thank you. I was ashamed of my English too. But your video gave me hope. I sat there, reading it again and again. I realized my story was helping someone else. My struggle had value. My voice mattered. And all the pain, fear, and effort suddenly felt worth it. It reminded me that our imperfections don't make us weak. They make us human. And sometimes, those very imperfections inspire others to rise. I kept going. I read books, watched interviews, took notes, and tried to learn something new every day. I wasn't perfect, and I didn't aim to be. I just aimed to be better than yesterday. And with that mindset, I grew day by day, sentence by sentence. I no longer feared English. I embraced it. It became a friend, not a burden. It connected me to people, to knowledge, and to a better version of myself. And every time I looked back, I reminded myself how far I had come, not because of talent or luck, but because I didn't stop. I stayed in the game. I stayed with the dream. And that made all the difference. With time, my relationship with English evolved. It wasn't just a skill anymore. It became a bridge to new opportunities, friendships, and perspectives. I remember one morning when I received an email from someone abroad, asking if I could collaborate on a small project. They had watched one of my videos and believed I could bring value to their team. My hands trembled as I replied. It wasn't fear this time, it was excitement. The very language I once felt ashamed of had now opened a door I never imagined. That project became the first of many. I began working with people from different countries, joining Zoom calls, brainstorming ideas, presenting in English. In the beginning, I still stumbled, sometimes repeating myself or searching for the right word. But instead of apologizing, I kept going. I learned that people don't expect perfection. They respect effort, clarity, and honesty. The more I interacted, the stronger my communication became. My sentences flowed better. My vocabulary expanded. I began to feel natural in conversations that once felt impossible. And through these moments, I discovered something else. Learning English had not only improved my ability to speak, but also my confidence in every part of life. It was like building a muscle that affected everything I did. I walked taller. I felt prouder. I began to dream bigger. I could now imagine studying abroad, attending international events, or writing my own book. Things that once felt like fantasies now felt within reach. My dream wasn't just about language anymore. It was about becoming the person I always knew I could be. Along the way, I met others like me, people who were once ashamed of their English but chose to keep going. We shared our stories, encouraged each other, and celebrated every little win. I realized that so many of us had hidden our voices for too long, believing we weren't good enough. But once we stopped hiding, once we started speaking, even with mistakes, we unlocked something powerful. We discovered that our voice mattered, even if it wasn't perfect, especially because it wasn't perfect. That vulnerability made it real. And real connection is what people crave the most. One evening, I hosted an online session for beginners who were just starting their English journey. They were nervous, just like I used to be. I told them my story, not as a teacher, but as a fellow learner. I told them about the embarrassment, the fear, the silence, and how it all changed when I refused to stop. Their eyes lit up. They saw themselves in me, just as I had once seen myself in someone else. That moment reminded me that progress doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just showing up one more time, speaking one more word, believing one more day. My English wasn't perfect, but it was powerful because it carried the weight of every step I'd taken to learn it. And that power was more than enough. I had once been ashamed, but now I was proud. Not because I had reached the end, but because I had never given up. And that, I realized, was what true success looked like. The more I reflected on my journey, the more I realized how much had changed, not just in my English, but in my entire outlook on life. I used to think that learning English was only about grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary. But it turned out to be about courage, discipline, and identity. English became the mirror in which I saw my growth. Every sentence I spoke was proof that I was moving forward. Every conversation I dared to have was a victory over the fear that used to control me. And the best part? I started to genuinely enjoy the process. I created a routine that wasn't overwhelming. I watched movies with subtitles, listened to songs, read simple books, and practiced speaking with friends online. I didn't chase perfection. I chased consistency. Even if it was just 20 minutes a day, I made it count. I found joy in understanding a joke in English for the first time. I smiled when I could respond instantly in a chat without translating in my head. These small wins became the fuel that kept me going. And the more I practiced, the more natural it felt. Eventually, I noticed people around me reacting differently too. They began to respect my effort. My friends asked me how I improved so much. Some even asked me to help them start. That felt surreal. I, who once avoided every English conversation, was now encouraging others to start speaking. It wasn't that I became the best English speaker in the room, but I became someone who didn't give up, and that inspired people. One day, I sat down to record a video for my YouTube channel. It was a short story about the first time I spoke English in public. I was nervous while recording, but I remembered how far I had come. I spoke with honesty, laughed at my old mistakes, and shared tips that helped me. That video went viral. Comments flooded in, people from around the world saying they felt the same way. Many shared their own fears and dreams. That's when I truly understood the power of sharing your journey. People don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be real. And because I was real, they connected. That connection gave me new purpose. I wasn't just learning English for myself anymore. I was learning it to help others believe in themselves too. I started hosting live sessions, creating practice groups, and even writing a simple guide for beginners. The more I gave, the more I grew. It was like the shame that once silenced me had transformed into strength. A strength I could pass on. And through it all, I kept reminding myself of one truth. I didn't get here overnight. It took effort, patience, and the willingness to keep trying, even when it was hard. There were still days I doubted myself, moments when I mispronounced a word or forgot something simple. But I stopped letting those moments define me. I embraced them as part of the process. Because progress isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's slow, and it's full of lessons. And every time I chose not to stop, I grew. I once thought English was a wall between me and my dreams. But I was wrong. English wasn't a wall. It was the key. The wall was fear. And by learning, speaking, and believing, I unlocked a life I never thought possible. And I'm still unlocking more, one word at a time. Thank you for watching my story. If you've ever felt embarrassed about your English, I hope this gave you hope. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. Don't let shame stop you. Keep going, even when it's hard, because your voice matters. If I can do it, so can you. Now it's your turn. What's one small step you'll take today to improve your English? Let me know in the comments. If you found this helpful or inspiring, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories and motivation. See you in the next video. Keep learning and keep shining.